Yo, I've made this tier list, carved out a square of each villain that I deemed important enough from all expansions to be worthy of being placed on this ascending ladder, and I'm rating them on everything, presence, likability, and overall impact on the world. So, in no chronological order, let's begin. Deathwing, visually and on paper a very fitting WoW villain, but man, after his dramatic entrance, he really was somewhat of a snooze fest. Not to mention he died by having us pop pimples on his back and hurt his little tentacles. Not to mention that Deathwing in the game, Deathwing in the books. We don't talk about the books. They just never managed to make him a villain you want to see more of. More or less a bland, straight up evil dragon. Also tough to follow up the last boss of the expansion before it, Kiljaeden. Deathwing goes in C tier. Hello, I'm here for a brief message from this video's sponsor, and you might be familiar with them. It's Raid Shadow Legends. That's right, the legendary free fantasy mobile and PC game with over 600 unique champions is here to let you know that there is now a goddamn Hydra in the game. The Hydra is a superpowered clan boss. It's the ultimate beast. The multiple different heads has unique mechanics. It can rot you from the inside, a very unique medical situation. The whole fight is a crazy tactical puzzle box with new challenges popping up all over the place. In Raid, I like how you're able to just absolutely go ham on upgrading an item and make your champion possibly attack twice as many times as others, among other things. Also, the sheer amount of champions you can play with and combine in different teams is pretty neat. And what's crazy is Raid is releasing a ton of new champions this month, along with a brand new faction wars crypt for the Shadowkin faction, and a lot of tournaments and events, including a special fusion event where you can get one of Raid's newest legendary champions. And if you use my link in the description below, you'll get some free resources and a free mystery champion to kickstart your game. You will find these in your inbox, so go see what you'll get using my link down below to check the game out. Or use the QR code. Thank you to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. Onwards to the next villain of Azeroth, Lei Shen. Honestly, I wasn't too into mob as a whole because I was addicted to Hell, League of Legends. But in retrospect, Lei Shen is a cool villain. He has an interesting story that Platinum explains perfectly. But for me personally, even when I was on WoW back then, he wasn't something that really drew me in. Also C tier. Garrosh. Now Garrosh, he was the big draw of mob, one of the most iconic villains in WoW. He nuked a city and spiked any of his own that were even slightly critical of his mischievous behavior. And from day one, he was just such a brutally honest character. There was no bullshit. However, he did spawn the biggest black hole of an expansion to date, in which he got the electric chair in a leveling questline. But damn it, that ending cinematic is so good and a little heart-wrenching.
You made me what I am.
Saying Thrall's negligence created who he became is such a... oh, it hits. And thank you Blizzard for using him as promotional material for Shadowlands, just for him to be nothing but a 1 minute long cutscene from 2012. I've come around, Garrosh is an S. Sylvanas. Oh boy. I have a whole video on her as a character, so I'll make this brief. Thing is, I don't hate her as a villain. She's so smug in the most hateable way, and that is spicy, but it is a bit annoying that she's always like one step ahead. Up until now, where she has kind of been ruined because now she has been fooled into doing it all and has suddenly become a more or less benevolent character out of nowhere, and for that she doesn't really do it for me as a villain, so D tier. Illidan. Warning, extremely cold take, most likely. I don't think Illidan was a top-notch WoW villain in BC. He wasn't really that present, and everything we've since learned about his ambitions back then kinda shines a light on how underdeveloped he was in the expansion in comparison to what he would later become. He also isn't a villain outside of Burning Crusade, but I do really like his speech to Maiev after he's been defeated.
You have won. You are nothing without me.
He is right.
I ship them. Illidan is a C tier, mainly because of his development out of the villain role later on. Kiljaeden. I am probably the biggest Kiljaeden fanboy. I just love the whole Eredar triumvirate backstory, Valen's betrayal, upsetting best friend Kiljaeden to the point where he hunts him across the universe, his creation of the Lich King, and major influence in the orc invasion of Azeroth. He's one of the main villains of the old lore, meaning anything before the Jailer. In my book, that bald bitch doesn't count. Of course, Kiljaeden was the last boss of BC, where he was famously flushed out of the instance. But call me simple all you want, I think it was kinda cool how he wasn't fully on Azeroth and was sent back alive. It's kinda eerie because you know he's coming back at some point, and he did. Kiljaeden's role in Legion, from the audiobooks to his death cinematic, was a welcome surprise for the one-person stand club, me, and the fact that his story was finished off with sharing one last sober moment with the old friend he had sought for so long to slay was honestly beautiful. My heart says S, but I also know that he could have been much more than they made him. For being a cunning deceiver, he sure didn't show that in most of Legion. But that being said, he's an A for me. Milhouse Manastorm. The man is an absolute menace. He keeps coming back again and again and again. No matter what expansion you're in, you aren't safe from a Milhouse intrusion. He even entered our garrisons just to mock us. Then got a wife just to spend quality couples time beating us up in the realm of the dead. Milhouse Jeremus Mastorm is a widely known mage of questionable morals. You hear that? Don't turn your backs to him. If World of Warcraft concludes with a Milhouse Mastorm end boss, he has deserved it. That said, I absolutely hate him, F tier. Garrosh, the Lord of the Burning Legion, the Dark Titan, the main antagonist of Legion according to Wikipedia, and yet Milhouse Manastorm has had a more dominating presence in World of Warcraft. I understand that Garrosh is behind everything the Burning Legion has taken part in, but all we get of Garrosh himself after 15 years of build-up is a planet-orbiting cloud which he emerges from, stabs the planet, and is subsequently sucked up like his body before him, delivered a perfect expansion transition, and then just left nothing but a red dot in the sky. I really hope and believe that that wasn't the planned conclusion to his story, but with the involuntary and voluntary exiting from the company with his fate in their hands, I fear that Blizzard won't have any more employees to make Garrosh's grand finale whenever that comes up. He has everything it takes to be S tier, but until we actually get to fight him directly and see him lead in person throughout an entire expansion, I'm giving him an F. Please, Blizzard, this is one of the last things I care about that you haven't trashed yet, please. Grommash Hellscream. Grom came into WoD looking like a main antagonist, but he just ended up not being a boss, having to be saved by us, and then dancing with the Draenei whom he had just slaughtered en masse. F tier for Grommash. I don't understand what happened there. Absolutely abysmal performance from him. Arcumond, a classic WoW villain. Many of the things said about Kiljaeden applies here, so I'll make it brief. He was a BC Caverns of Time boss and not really anything spectacular. Then in an expansion where Gul'dan, Grommash, and Garrosh seem to be the main bad guys, he just shows up out of absolutely nowhere. Trips, falls, and boom. Another seamless expansion transition. D tier, just because I otherwise like Arkimu, but in WoW he hasn't really had a big role. Nissoth, not like this. A decade of build-up of the next old god of his realm of Ny'alotha looming, just for him to have as little presence and time as he got at the end of BFA. Topping that off with a universally disappointing in cinematic in Nissoth that didn't live up to any of the hype. F tier. Ashara. I actually kinda liked her patch, despite the issues WoW has. She was a decent villain in comparison to what we usually get in the middle of expansions, but obviously nowhere near what she could have been given her part in the Warcraft lore. High D, maybe C? I'm torn and disappointed. Yogg-Saron, the beast that can eat 1,000 burgers. The old god that has had the most actual presence in WoW. Everything around Ulduar, the dungeons and so on, really made him seem to have this clear influence without even being unchained from his prison. The trailer for him is 100 times more potent than whatever Trainwreck Nissoth got. That being said, very few WoW villains ever become a very fleshed out character in-game, so I'll just give him an A for cool points. Cthun. I never really felt strongly one way or another about Cthun. He's decent. He was absolutely unstoppable before his nerf in vanilla. Might be the creepiest old god merely because of the abundance of car-sized insects he commands, but his lack of an eyelid does make me sympathize for how painfully dry his eye must be.
Your heart will explode.
What in the goddamn hell are you talking about?
C Toon tier. Onyxia. In many ways, the #1 antagonistic dragon in World of Warcraft. Raid boss in Manila, Wrath, and Kata dropped those cool ass head items in Wrath that I, as a BC baby, didn't get to appreciate in Manila, and that was just a fun, direct way to get an all geared up for raiding. Love Onyxia. Please reinstate her on the throne of Stormwind while Anduin is out cosplaying Arthas. B tier, because she wasn't ever a huge part of the narratives running in WoW. Ragnaros. Ragnaros was never really a character you knew much about. He was just literally a sentient fire hell-bent on sparking light in the world and turned to ash. But he's a classic WoW villain from the good old days, who came back around a few times to repeat the success. However, today he is deceased, allegedly, so now all that's left of him is a cute little torch in the in-game store. B tier for being the hottest villain in the game. Kel'Thuzad. Good old KT, Nax Ramaz legend ×2, and obviously a fan-favorite antagonist in all of Warcraft lore. He was a great #2 to the Lich King, but in Shadowlands, they've kinda made him seem to have never really cared about neither Arthas or Ner'zhul with his had to pretend to serve false masters line in Sanctum of Domination. And it might make sense story-wise, but I don't really like that change. At least he still likes his cat. I think a B is fair for KT. Nefarian. Honestly, I didn't really care too much for him in Cataclysm, and I never played vanilla, so to me, I can't rate him higher than a C. But he was the producer behind the creation of Atramedes, the then dragon whelp that ended up completely blind after rigorous torture, so at least Nefarian did something cool. Kael'thas. of this. Kael was for me the most fascinating villain of BC, just based on his death in Tempest Keep going into the final patch where his corpse had been reanimated and we get to fight him one last time. There was something awfully morbid about it, and it always stuck with young me, so to this day I still think that his limited time as a villain in World of Warcraft was still engaging. Plus he dropped me ashes, so I can't rate him too low. His role recently has been more of an ally to us, which obviously goes against the esteem as a villain, so I'll drop him in C tier. Denathrius. By far the best villain of Shadowlands so far. He might be a thirst trap, but beyond that chest piece of his, he truly is charismatic, and if we cut all the crap around the Shadowlands lore out, his character is really cool and engaging. When he's on screen, you want to see more of him. You want to get more angles for screenshots for your PC background to switch between. It's understandable. It's sad that we lost him so early in the expansion and lost that X factor. Now he's in Naru school being plagued by tinnitus for an eternity until he repents. A tier. Gul'dan. I'm not gonna lie, even though he was just alternate Gul'dan, his character brought so much to Warden Legion. He basically carried every scene. He is in many ways fell in a humanoid form, just evil incarnate, but you also had this sense that he was just an egomaniac living spontaneously, ready to crash whenever he would go a little too far in his pursuit of power. I loved his presence in WoW. I think he grounded the bad guy a lot, but I can't say I didn't find it a little bit silly to have him turn into a skull again. But for me, he's the highest A you can get. Argus. Wouldn't say he was a main villain, but since he was the last boss of the last raid tier, he's gotta be on the list. But no relation to him at all, came and took the spot I think most expected Garrosh to inhabit. So big shoes to fill for Mr. Stop this cycle of death by sniping the Arbiter and causing one of millions of events orchestrated by Nippleman himself. But Argus gets an F. He wasn't even a character, he was just there. I said earlier that I don't believe in Solval. I would rather think about Warcraft lore as if he had nothing to do with it. And that's not because I'm against new villains being supremely powerful. I just resent that they've ascribed a lot of past highlights in the lore to him without doing much to really make him stand out when he's on screen. Why would he let Bane go like that? Why is he just shown as a monologue machine? Why doesn't he kill the only beings that could possibly stop him when he gets the chance to? He has had thousands upon thousands of years to plan for this moment, and against his own interest he just lets us take care of Sylvanas, potentially letting us learn her information on his plan instead of tying up the loose ends then and there. I think it's a bit cheap, and I just haven't seen anything from the jailer himself that makes me like him as a villain. I'll give him a D because perhaps he'll go out with a bang. The Lich King. I don't care who you are, what little unique opinions you may brandish to avoid the herd. The Lich King is absolutely the benchmark for WoW villain greatness. His role in the Death Knight questlines, the rivalry with Tyrion, popping up all over Northwind as we progressively push back his forces to Icecrown Citadel, seeing him in Trial of the Crusader and Naxxramas, and that chilling monologue at the entrance of ICC.
The atrocities I have committed upon his soul. He has resisted for so long, but he will bow down before his king soon. Never! I will never serve you! In the end, you will all serve me.
As we climb up the Citadel, seeing all his abominations and supporting factions just to face him at the top, his father fighting against him from Frostmourne as he's defeated, and we get a glimpse of the old Arthas, my favorite WoW villain. And one thing is for sure, Arthas won't see darkness anymore as the top spot on this prestigious list is shining upon him. Praise be he. So, that's my list. Do you agree, disagree, don't care? Tell me down below and you can make your own list using the tier list I made for this video. Link in the description. Send it to me at Kakio and I'll scoff at your inferior takes. Thank you for watching, and you know what? While you're at it, I've got a Discord server, an Instagram, and a Twitch if you fancy any of that. See you next time.